Rita first realized how much power she had lost in her hips on a rainy Thursday afternoon when she tried to climb the short flight of stairs to her bedroom and her legs felt like they belonged to someone else, heavy, shaky, and slow, forcing her to grab the rail with both hands while a small voice in her mind whispered, "This should not be this hard at 58." She had always thought of herself as fairly active, the kind of woman who walked around the neighborhood, carried her own groceries, and bent down to play with her grandkids. But over the last few years, the changes had crept in quietly, one small warning at a time. Her lower back ached whenever she stood at the sink, her hips felt tight when she got out of the car, and whenever she rose from the couch, she had to rock forward and push hard with her hands because her legs did not seem to lift her the way they once did. One evening, her granddaughter dropped a toy on the floor and asked, "Grandma, can you get it?" And as Rita bent to reach it, a sharp pinch shot through her right hip, stopping her halfway, her face tightening as she said, "Give me a second, honey," while her daughter watched from the doorway, concern written all over her eyes. Later that night, her daughter said softly, "Mom, I see you grabbing the furniture more. You avoid stairs. You say your back and hips hurt. Have you thought about talking to someone?" And Rita replied with a tired smile, "This is just age, dear. Everyone slows down after 50, but the words did not feel comforting anymore." In bed, staring at the ceiling, she remembered something her doctor had mentioned at her last visit, a single line that had stuck. "Weak glutes are one of the biggest reasons women your age struggle with balance and back pain." And at the time she had nodded without really understanding, thinking glutes were just about having a nice shape, not about staying safe. A week later, she walked into a small clinic with a simple sign, "Active Again Physical Therapy," expecting to hear the usual advice about walking more and being careful. But the woman who greeted her, a physical therapist named Elana, had a different energy, calm but firm, eyes that seemed to see the way Rita moved even before she sat down. "Tell me what your hips and legs have been doing lately," Elena said, and Rita found herself sharing more than she planned. The stairs, the toy on the floor, the way she now avoided hills on her walks, the quiet fear that one wrong step could send her to the ground. Elena listened, then said, "Rita, you are not alone. Most women over 50 are never told that the muscles in their hips and glutes act like the engine for their lower body. Those muscles go quiet. Everything else works harder, the knees, the back, even the small muscles in the feet. No wonder you feel tired and sore." She moved a small model of a pelvis and spine onto the desk and pointed to the broad muscles at the back, explaining, "These are your glutes. They are supposed to be your power center, lifting you from chairs, driving you upstairs, keeping your pelvis stable every time you take a step, but sitting, stress, and years of using your back instead have turned them down." Rita frowned and asked, "So walking is not enough?" And Elena shook her head gently. "Walking is great for your heart and circulation, but it does not fully wake sleepy glutes, especially when you are already compensating. That is why you can walk but still feel weak on stairs and getting up." She leaned back, then said in a steady voice, "There are 5 essential exercises I teach women over 50 who want stronger glutes and safer hips. They are simple, no gym, no fancy equipment, but they target exactly what time has been stealing from you. If you learn them now, you can slow or even reverse that loss before it is too late." Elena smiled slightly and added, "Before we start, I want you to think for a moment, which daily movement scares you the most right now? Is it stairs, getting off the floor, standing from low chairs, or walking on uneven ground? Hold that in your mind because each exercise will connect to one of those fears." She then moved a padded mat onto the floor and said, "Exercise number 5 is the most gentle, but it is the switch that tells your glutes to wake up again. We call it the supported bridge." She asked Rita to lie on her back with her knees bent, feet flat, a small folded towel under her head, then guided her, "Place your hands on your hips so you can feel the muscles, press your feet into the floor, squeeze your buttocks gently, and slowly lift your hips just a few inches, hold for 3 counts, then lower down with control." Rita followed, surprised at how quickly she felt a mild burn in the back of her hips and how different it felt from straining her lower back. That is your glutes talking. Elena said, for now we start with 8 to 10 small lifts once a day, always on a firm surface. And always stopping if you feel sharp pain. This simple move begins to switch your power back on. As Rita lay there catching her breath, she realized for the first time that maybe her body was not just getting old, maybe it was asking for the right kind of strength, the kind no one had taught her yet. Over the next week, Rita did her supported bridges on the carpet beside her bed every evening, at first feeling awkward and a little silly, lifting her hips a few inches and counting softly 1, 2, 3 before lowering again. But by the fourth night, she noticed something subtle. Her hips did not feel as heavy when she rolled out of bed in the morning, and the pinch in her lower back was slightly less sharp when she stood at the sink. At her follow-up appointment, Elena watched her walk into the room and said, your steps already look a bit more sure. How did the bridges feel? And Rita answered, strange at first, but I can actually feel those muscles working now like they were sleeping before, touching the back of her hips with a small, proud smile. Good, Elena replied. That is your base layer. Now we add the next piece, an exercise that links your glutes to the movement you do dozens of times a day, standing up and sitting down. She pulled a sturdy chair to the middle of the room and said, this one is called the glute focused sit to stand. Simple, but it is one of the strongest predictors of whether a woman can stay independent after 50. She asked Rita to sit on the front half of the chair, feet under her knees, hands resting lightly on her thighs, then continued, before you stand, think about your glutes, gently squeeze them. Lean your chest forward a little, then press your feet into the floor and stand up. Try not to push with your hands if you can help it. Rita followed, squeezing her buttocks first, then rising, feeling the front of her thighs and the back of her hips work together more than before, a deeper but controlled effort. Now sit back down slowly, Elena instructed. Keep some tension in your glutes as you lower. Do not drop. This controlled lowering trains your muscles to catch you if you ever lose balance or start to fall toward a chair. After a few repetitions, Rita felt a growing warmth and said between breaths, this feels harder than walking around the block. And Elena nodded. That is because walking mostly recycles the strength you already have, while this builds new strength in the exact pattern. You need to get off couches, toilets and car seats safely. She gave Rita clear homework. At home, I want you to do 8 to 10 of these gluteal focused sit to stands once a day from a sturdy chair that does not roll. Keep a counter or table nearby in case you feel unsteady. If your knees complain, make the chair a bit higher with a cushion and keep the movement smaller. The goal is control, not speed. For the next several days, Rita practiced them in her living room, choosing her favorite armchair, placing a hand lightly on the table beside it for security, and counting each slow rise and each careful sit, feeling a little more confident each time she stood without pushing through her arms. One afternoon, halfway through a set, she realized she was no longer holding her breath. With every stand, her body trusted the pattern a bit more, and that small trust felt like 100 tiny victories stacked together. At her third session, Elena greeted her with a warm nod and said, you are ready for the third essential exercise. This one will target the side of your hips, the muscles that stop your knees from collapsing inward and help you stay steady when you step sideways or walk on uneven ground. She guided Rita to stand beside a counter, one hand resting on it, feet hip width apart, and explained, this is called a supported side leg lift or hip abduction, and it trains the outer glute muscles that many women lose first without noticing. She asked Rita to shift a little weight onto her left leg, keep both knees slightly bent, then slowly move her right leg out to the side a few inches without turning her toes outward. Just a smooth lift, hold for a moment, then bring it back to the starting position. The first few attempts felt wobbly, and Rita gripped the counter tighter, saying, my leg feels weak, like it is not sure how to move that way. And Elena answered calmly, that is exactly why we are here. These side muscles protect your hips and knees when you step off a curb avoid a puddle, or catch yourself from a sideways stumble, we will wake them gently. After several repetitions, Rita felt a tight, focused work along the outside of her hip, a place she rarely noticed before, and Elena said, "At home, I want you to do 8 slow side lifts on each leg, once a day, always with one hand on a sturdy surface. Keep the movement small and controlled. This is not about kicking high, it is about control and balance." As Rita left the clinic that day, she realized that these 3 simple movements, bridges, sit to stands, and side leg lifts, were already weaving together in her daily life, helping her rise, step, and stand with a little more faith in her own legs. 2 weeks later, on a breezy Sunday morning, Rita stood at the bottom of the stairs in her house and noticed something she had not felt in years: a quiet belief that her legs might actually handle the climb without that old surge of dread. So she placed one hand lightly on the rail, lifted her foot to the first step, and pushed through her glutes the way Elena had taught her, feeling her hips and thighs work together instead of leaving the job to her knees alone. The steps were still effort, but they no longer felt like a mountain, more like a steady hill. And when she reached the top, a little breathless but not shaking, she stood there for a moment, surprised by the sting of tears in her eyes. At her next visit, Alina watched her walk in and said, "Your posture already looks stronger. Your hips are carrying you, not dragging." Then added, "Today we will add the 4th essential exercise, one that connects your stronger glutes to your back and teaches your body to bend safely." She led Rita to the kitchen style counter in the clinic and asked her to stand facing it, feet hip width, knees slightly bent, hands resting gently on the edge, then explained, "This movement is called a hip hinge. It is different from a squat. Here the main action happens at your hips, not your knees, and it trains your glutes to protect your spine every time you lean forward to pick something up or reach into a low shelf." She demonstrated, pushing her hips back as if closing a drawer behind her, keeping her back long and chest open, then returning to standing, saying, "Notice my spine stays straight, my glutes and hamstrings do the work." This pattern keeps many women from injuring their back after 50. Rita copied the motion, feeling her hips move backward and a mild stretch grow in the back of her legs, then a gentle effort in her glutes as she stood tall again. "It feels strange," she admitted. "I am used to bending from my waist." And Elena nodded. "Most people are. But once your hips learn to hinge, carrying laundry, unloading groceries, even brushing your teeth becomes safer because your glutes are finally doing their job." She gave Rita simple homework. At home, practice 10 slow hip hinges each day at your counter, hands resting lightly, move your hips back. Pause for a second, then stand tall by squeezing your glutes. Stop if you feel sharp pain, but expect a mild stretch and some work. Over the next days, Rita noticed that even small tasks like leaning over the kitchen sink now brought her awareness to her hips instead of her lower back, and she started catching herself thinking, "Hips back, then stand just like the hinges." At their final session in this first program, Elena said, "You have activated your glutes lying down, strengthened them standing up, trained them sideways, and taught them to protect your back. Now we add the 5th exercise, the one that ties everything together for stairs and curbs." She walked Rita to a low step platform and said, "This is a supported step up. A powerful but simple move that trains your glutes to lift your whole body weight safely." She asked Rita to place her right foot fully on the step, hold the rail with one hand, then explained, "Press through your whole foot, especially your heel. Gently squeeze your glutes and step up so both feet end on the step. Then slowly step back down with control. Let your glute on that front leg do most of the lifting, not your back or your arms." The first few repetitions were challenging, and Rita felt her heart rate climb, but she also felt a deep, solid work in the back of her hips that somehow felt right, like the exact place that had been lazy for too long. At home, Elena said, "You can use the lowest stair in your house, always with a rail or sturdy support. Start with 6 step-ups on each leg once a day. If that is too much, begin with 3 and build from there. The goal is quality and control, not speed." Over the following week, Rita started doing her step-ups every morning, sometimes grumbling, sometimes proud, but always noticing that afterward, walking felt a little more powerful, her strides a bit more driven from behind instead of dragged from the front. One rainy afternoon, she parked a little farther from the grocery store than usual and had to walk up a slight incline from the lot, something that would have made her dread the return trip before. Yet this time, as she climbed back toward her car with bags in both hands, she realized her hips were pushing her forward. Her back did not complain, and she did not need to pause halfway. That night, she sat quietly at her kitchen table and thought about the woman she had been just a month earlier, gripping rails, avoiding steps, telling herself, this is just age, and about the woman now, still 58, still with lines on her face, but with glutes that had finally remembered their job. If someone like her over 50, feeling their hips and back getting weaker while their fear grows stronger, were listening now, she would say, do not wait until you fall or until stairs feel impossible. Start with one of these simple glute exercises. Talk to your doctor or physical therapist if you need guidance, but give your body a chance to surprise you. As you think about her story, you might notice your own life inside it, the way you push off your chair, avoid hills, or feel your knees take the load instead of your hips. And if any of that sounds familiar, today could be the day you begin, even with just a few supported bridges on the floor or low step-ups with a rail nearby. When you are ready, you can share in the comments which movement worries you most right now, stairs, getting off the floor, or carrying groceries, and which of these 5 exercises you plan to try first, because your experience can encourage another woman who thinks she is alone. And before you leave, remember these are just your first 5 glute essentials. There is another simple routine using only a wall and your own body weight that many therapists now teach to build even more hip power, core stability, and joint protection after 50. It fits right alongside what you learned here. So be sure to watch the next video on your screen and let it guide you through that next important step towards stronger, more confident movement every day.